Let us pray. O Lord, bless our deliberations, having begun, continued, and ended in thee, that they may conduce to securing and holding us fast in the enjoying of you and magnifying of you, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. We move on in our hymn book, having noted that beautiful hymn of Miles Coverdale. And here's another 17th century hymn. If thou but trust in God to guide thee, and hope in him through all thy ways, 635. He'll give thee strength whate'er betide thee, and bear thee through the evil days. Who trusts in God's unchanging love, build on a rock that naught can move. Looks like a German hymn, and also by a man who lived through the 30 Years' War. Final judgment will sort all that out. Well, we return to this subject, which may ruin your Saturday afternoon if you're watching. We're reading the trial transcript and the circumstances around Willie Laud. He's been put in a tower. Now he's getting released, and there's a note sent to him. So we pick up on page 43. To the gentleman usher, on 13 of November, the Archbishop, appearing at the Lord's bar in person, put in this following answer to the additional arguments exhibited against him. Humble answer of William, Archbishop of Canterbury. The humble answer? The man was a little dictator, autocrator would be the word. A man with catatonic negativity, a man with delusions of grandeur, maybe even some other psychiatric disturbances. To the further articles of impeachment of high treason and divers high crimes, and the idea is he was trying to reconcile Rome and Canterbury. We want to see how that's proved. Upon his motion, the same order of the Lords, this order was made in favor of him. De Lunae 13, I guess it'd be Monday, 13 November 1643, ordered by the Lords in Parliament that the Lord Archbishop of Canterbury, his council, should provide themselves to advise in point of law on all articles of the whole charge, and in the matter of fact, when the cause comes to be presented by the House of Commons, as their need shall be. We're skipping ahead here. On 1 December 1643, kind of chilly in London, wouldn't it? Rain. The House of Commons, being desirous to bring the Archbishop to a speedy trial, and made this ensuing order. 11 December 1643, ordered that the committee for the trial of the Archbishop of Canterbury do meet this afternoon at 2 o'clock in Star Chamber. Oh, Willie's favorite place. To prepare the evidence against the Archbishop of Canterbury, and to summon such witnesses as are needful, and prepare the business. I know what you're going to ask for, right? That's my grandson, whom I love to have around. Just keep it down. You got some goofy thing going on with the TV. And prepare the business for trial, and to acquaint the House when they are ready. And this they're to do with all convenient speed they can, and have power to send for parties, witnesses, papers, and records. So kind of like a motion for discovery. And all this is the legal skirmishings, pretrial. The care of is particularly committed unto the Sergeant Wild. Hereupon the committee met sundry times to prepare the evidence. 3 January, following the Lords, intending to expedite the Archbishop's trial according to the Commons' desire, made this rule. D.A. Mercury. It's all right. Mercury, 3 January, 1643. Is he in the tower all this time? I think so. Was he a flight risk? Where would he go? Well, he'd go to the colonies. Wouldn't create trouble there. Nobody would want him, I don't think. By the way, by this time, Jamestown is settled in the United States with an Anglican colony. I believe Reverend Hunt is dead by this time. New England's been established. It is this day ordered by the Lords in Parliament that this House will proceed against William Laud, Archbishop of Canterbury, upon the impeachment brought up from the House of Commons for high crimes and misdemeanors. On Monday morning next at 10 of the clock, being 8 of this instant January 1643, at which time the said Archbishop is to prepare himself for his defense, to the gentleman usher attending this house of his deputy to be delivered to the lieutenant of the Tower or his deputy for Archbishop. Whereupon the Lords the same day sent down this message to the Commons, thus entered in their journal. And great, we have writing, scholars, proceedings, trials. So that as we sit here in 2020 and we talk about the trial of Laud, we can talk about the hot Laudians, these hot Puritans, these hot this, that, and the other, favorite term used to abuse opponents in a land full of equipoise and balance and moderation. 20th century historians trying to create an entity. You've got here a trial of an archbishop who are going to decapitate. A message sent from the Lords by Sir Robert Rich and Mr. Page. The Lords commanded us to put you in mind that the Archbishop of Canterbury hath put in his plea to the impeachment of this house up to the Lords sometime since, which they desire you to take into consideration what is fit to be done in it. January, the House of Commons desired the Lords to appoint a committee to examine some witnesses upon oath against the Archbishop in the presence of the Committee of Commons, which being granted, the Commons made this order, 5 January 1643, ordered that the committee of this House, formerly appointed for the business of Archbishop Canterbury, shall be the committee in the presence of whom the witnesses in the case of the bishop are to be examined upon oath by the Committee of Lords. On 6 January, the Archbishop referred this petition to the Lords for the deferring of his trial to some longer trial, written with Dell's hand and subscribed with his own name. To the Right Honorable Lords assembled in the High Court of Parliament, the humble petition of William Laud, Archbishop of Canterbury, prisoner in the Tower, humbly showeth that your petitioner, having received your lordship's command with the honorable order of 3 of this instant January annexed, to attend and answer the impeachment against your petitioner from the Honorable House of Commons on Monday, the 8th of this instant January. This is really tedious, isn't it? But at least we'll read the trial. Which is but 5 days' distance, and at a time when 2 of his 3 council assigned of town and your petitioner witnesses residing in several remote places cannot be summoned in so short a time, nor willingly, happily, to come up in their summons without warrant from your lordships. Looks like legal skirmishing for a motion for continuance. Your petitioner's most humble suit to your lordships is that you will honorably vouchsafe him some more convenient time to send for his counsel and witnesses to testify in the matters of fact charged against him, and withal to grant the petitioner your honorable order to command the witnesses summoned attend at the time by your lordships to be appointed, which his humble request your petitioner had sooner presented to your lordships. And your petitioner shall pray, and with cant, upon reading whereof the Lords made this order in his favor, to out him of all excuses, and to prevent all clamons, whatever that is, of serpasol, I don't know what that is, Sabati, Lord's Day, 6 January 1643, Whereas the House formally appointed Monday, being the 8th of this instant January, to proceed against William Laud, Archbishop, upon the impeachments brought up against him from the House of Commons for high treason, high crimes, and misdemeanors. Upon reading the petition of the said Archbishop, it is ordered by the Lords and Parliaments, to the end the council of witnesses of said Archbishop may have competent time to attend the hearing of the cause. This House will respite the proceeding against the said Archbishop until the said impeachments until Tuesday, the 16th of this instant January 1643 at 10 o'clock in the morning, at which time the said Archbishop is peremptorily appointed to provide his witnesses and prepare his defense unto the said impeachments. To the gentleman usher, in pursuance whereof this order was afterwards made and entered, Die Lunae 15 January 1643. Well, we're not very far off from the Westminster Assembly, are we? It is ordered this day, ordered by the Lords in Parliament and the Lieutenant of the Tower of London, whose deputy shall bring in safety the Archbishop of Canterbury before their lordships on Tuesday, the 16th of this instant January, by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, at which time this House will proceed against the said Archbishop upon the impeachments brought up from the House of Commons against him for might, treason, and high crimes and misdemeanors, and to be a sufficient warrant in that behalf. To the gentleman usher, or the SHER. The next day, the Archbishop being brought to the Lord's house, finally, we get into the trial. At the time appointed, about 3 o'clock that afternoon, the Lord sent down this message to the House of Commons, thus entered in their journal, 16 January 1643. A message from the Lords by Sir Robert Rich and Mr. Page to acquaint the House that they are ready to hear the charge upon the impeachment against the Bishop of Canterbury. Upon this message, the committee of the House of Commons appointed to manage the evidence against him went up to the Lord's house, and then the Archbishop being brought to the bar after he had kneeled there a little space, was commanded to stand up, which ceremony ended. Mr. Maynard, one of the committee, desired the Lords that the original and additional articles of impeachment against the Archbishop might be read, which being read accordingly by the clerk, then he prayed that the Archbishop's several answers to these articles might likewise be read, whereupon the Speaker of the Lord's House commanding them to be read. At least they're giving them an open trial, open hearing. The clerk read only his aforementioned. Now, mind you, my friends, these are reformed people. It's a reformed nation, except for the hot Laudian Arminians and the hot ceremonialists. This is a trial of an archbishop of all things. Let's see where this goes. There being never an answer put in unto them, the archbishop having not in all the time of his restraint from 26th of February, 1640, till that hour, so much as tendered or put in any answer to his original articles, which was his own mere default, and never so much as once petitioned in all that space to be brought to his trial, notwithstanding his frequent complaints of his long imprisonment, delay of his hearing, occasioned by his own neglect, and by his petitioning for a longer time when Commons hastened his trial. Hereupon Mr. Maynard's, this is the Speaker of the House, to the Lords to this effect: My Lords, it now appears to your Lordships, these are all prayer book people now, call the congregations at London and throughout the 9,000 to 10,000 churches. It's kind of setting the scene here. 1643, it's 90 years earlier, you had Cranmer running around in Henry's England. This is Charles I's England. Now appears to your Lordships how unwilling the Archbishop is, out of a conscience of his own guilt, to come to his own trial, that in all this space from his first impeachment, he hath not so much as put in any answer to the original articles. He's got a delusion of grandeur. He feels he doesn't have to answer to these guys. Though he had long time since counsel assigned him for that purpose, my lords, this is none of the Commons' fault but his own. For your lordships well know, the Commons can take no notice what is done in the House of Peers in a parliamentary way, but by a message from your lordships, who after our articles exhibited were to call upon the Archbishop for an answer to them. Your lordship sending us several messages heretofore that the Archbishop had put in his answer to the articles that were ready to hear our charge against him. And appointing this day for his trial, the Commons thereupon conceived that he had formally put in his plea and answer in due form to all the articles. But the contrary now appearing both to your lordships, and it is impossible for us to proceed at this time in his trial, there being no issue joined upon the original articles for want of an answer to them. Upon the additionals before my answer given to the originals will be very preposterous. Therefore, humble pray your lordships to order the Archbishop may forthwith put his answer to the original and additional articles upon the advice of his council. And otherwise, in such sort as he will stand to it, and he shall without any delay join with him, proceed in his trial and evidence against him when your lordships shall appoint. The Archbishop, having little to reply hereunto, desired the Lords that he might advise with his council whether the articles were certain and particular enough to be answered unto, and that if their lordships should overrule him to put in his answer to them, he might have convenient time to do it. More stalling tactics, right? Upon this, being commanded to withdraw, the Lords, after some short debate among themselves, upon reading the Archbishop's petition to have Mr. Gourd of Gray's Inn assigned for his council to join with those formerly assigned him, made this ensuing order. It sounds to me like there's some people in the Parliament who don't want to proceed, or something's going on. It's highly political, and the question becomes who's who in this showcase trial. On the reading of the petition of William, Archbishop of Canterbury, it slipped out. It is this day ordered by the Lords in Parliament that Mr. Gerard of Gray's Inn be added to the former council assigned to the said Archbishop, to be likewise of his council. In this day ordered by the Lords in Parliament that William, Archbishop of Canterbury, shall put in his answer in writing into this House to the first and further articles of impeachment brought from the House of Commons against him by Monday morning next, peremptorily. Somebody's getting impatient. And the same council formerly assigned him shall be of counsel with him. On the 19th of January, the Archbishop sent this petition to the Lords. Oh, let's see this. To the right, honorable, the Lords assembled in Parliament, the humble, give me a break, the humble petition of William, Archbishop of Canterbury, prisoner in the Tower, showeth that whereas your petitioner, having formerly answered the particular articles exhibited against him by the Honorable House of Commons, and now by your lordship's order of the 16th of this instant, is commanded to put in his answer to the first and further articles of impeachment brought up against him by Monday morning next, for the doing whereof his further counsel is assigned him. Your petitioner, having advised this council concerning the first articles, which were exhibited almost 3 years sithence, finding upon perusal and debate of the same that the said former articles are such that no answer can be made thereunto, nor your petitioner in my wise enabled to prepare for events to the same as they now stand, that for as much as the said articles of impeachment import no less than a charge of high treason, for as much as your petitioner is by his counsel, especially in cases of life, the defendant is allowed to offer to the court, where the same depends his exceptions by his counsel. Your petitioner most Humbly beseecheth your lordships to appoint a day for the hearing of your petitioner's counsel concerning the same. And your petitioner shall pray. And V.V. Cant, whatever that is. D.A. Sabati, Lord's Day, Sabbath, 20 January, 1643. What are they doing writing and working on the Lord's Day? A service would have been done at Westminster Abbey, St. Margaret's, next door, just off the northern transept of Westminster Abbey. They'd sing evensong that night in all the cathedrals across England. It is this day ordered by the Lords in Parliament that the Lieutenant of the Tower of London or his deputy shall bring to safety William, Archbishop of Canterbury, before the Lordships on Monday, 22nd of this instant January, by 10 o'clock in the morning, to put his answer to the articles of impeachment. The answer of on 22 January, the Archbishop personally appearing at the Lord's bar, according to the former articles, that did then put in this following answer. The answer of the Archbishop to the first and further articles, delivered the 22nd of January, 1643. The humble answer of William Archbishop of Canterbury to the first and farther articles of impeachment, brought up to the Honorable House of Commons against him. As to the 13 article of the said articles and the matters therein charged, and all matters or things in the same or any way rest of the said articles which concern any act of hostility, whether between the king and his subjects or between the subject and subject, or which may be conceived to arise upon the coming of any English army against Scotland, or the coming of the Scottish army in England, or upon any action, attempt, assistance, counsel, or devise have in relation thereunto, falling out by the occasion of the late troubles, preceding the late conclusion of the treaty and return of the Scottish army to Scotland. This defendant saith that it is enacted by an act made during the sitting of the present Parliament, that the same and whatsoever hath ensued thereupon, whether trenching, truching upon the laws and liberties of the church and the kingdom, and upon his majesty's honor and authority, in no time hereafter may be called in question or resented as wrong, national or personal, and that no mention be made thereof in time coming, neither in judgment nor out of judgment, but that it be held and reputed as though never such things had been thought or wrought, by the said act may more at large appear with this. As the rest of the said and further articles, this defendant, saving to himself all advantages of exception to the said articles, humbly saith, he is not guilty of all the matters of the said articles charged in such manner and form, the same are the said articles against him. So he is just pleaded not guilty. The same day I find this entry in the Commons Journal, to wit, 22 January 1643. The Lords, by Sir Robert Rich and Mr. Page, sent down the answer of William of Canterbury to the first and further articles of impeachment. After this, the House of Commons, to expedite his trial on the 22nd of February 1643, ordered that the committee appointed to manage the evidence of the trial of the Archbishop of Canterbury do peremptorily meet this afternoon at 3 o'clock in the Court of Wards upon the distribution of the parts of evidence. The Commons and Lords being all ready for his trial, and having given him as much convenient time to prepare himself and his witnesses as he could desire, to prevent all clamors of the prelatical and Canterburyan party. Wow, what a statement there. Began now to think of a peremptory day for his trial, and thereupon I find this order entered in the Commons Journal, 4 March 1643. A message sent to the lords to desire them to appoint a day for the trial of the Bishop of Canterbury. Master Sergeant Wilde went up to the lords to appoint a day for the trial. Sergeant Wilde brings answer that the lords have appointed tomorrow se'night for the trial of Archbishop Canterbury, for which purpose the lords made the following order. Monday, 4 March 1644. It's like a year later. I wonder what the Continental Lutherans now, the 30-day war, 30-year war has been going on since 1618. I wonder how that coordinates theologically, historically, politically, economically. Ordered that the Archbishop of Canterbury shall appear before the lordships on Tuesday, the 12th of this instant March, at 9 in the morning, which this house will proceed against the Archbishop upon the first and further articles of impeachment brought from the House of Commons against him. After this, the Archbishop petitioned the Commons House that Sir Henry Midmay, a member thereof, might be examined as a witness for him at his trial. This order was thereupon received, 9 March 1644. The humble petition of William Archbishop of Canterbury, desiring that Sir Henry Mildmay may be examined as a witness in his business, he being to come to his trial on Tuesday next, was this read. And it is ordered according to his petition that he shall be examined as a witness at the trial of the said bishop accordingly. It was likewise then ordered. We got a 2:30 meeting. We're okay. That diverse members of the House of Commons shall be examined as witnesses against him, that the Lords be moved by Sergeant Wilde, that some members in attendance of the Lord's House be examined at the Archbishop's trial, and that it be referred to the Committee of Sequestrations to consider of some convenient recompense for such clerks, solicitors, and others as have been employed in the transcribing of breviates and other services done by them to the committee for the bishop. We feel at this point, where there's smoke, there's probably a fire. There's a lot of smoke here. So somewhere there's a fire. And I've read enough legal documents to know that a lot of talk you can make white appear black and green appear red. Really convincing. And then you read the other viewpoint, you go, what happened to that? On the 12th of March, his trial, according to the former order, was entered upon, of which I shall give you a summary account. Never was there in any age such a deliberate, solemn, patient, impartial hearing of any case in the High Court of Parliament, nor in any court of justice else in our own or any other kingdom whatsoever, as there were of this Archbishop. The first day of his trial began on 12 March 1643, wherein the whole time was spent in reading the articles of impeachment, his answers to them, and introductory speeches to the charges and evidence against him, made by Sergeant Wilde and the Archbishop himself. The first of a part of the evidence upon 1, 2, 3, 4, original, and 2, 3, 4, and 10, additional articles, was managed by John Maynard, Esquire, of the Commons House, where in 4 whole days, namely March 13, 16, 18, of Anno 1643 and March 28, 1644, were spent. The forenoons of them in the evidence and proofs, the afternoons in the Archbishop's answers and Master Maynard's reply unto them. The second part of the evidence was prosecuted by Robert Nicholas, Esquire, a member of the House of Commons, which took up 3 whole days, April 16, May 4, 16, morning and evening, in proof of the 5th and 6th original and 9th articles, and the answers and replies upon them. The third part, touching religion, contained in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 original, 6 and 7 articles, was carried on and managed by John Wilde, Sergeant at Law of the Commons House, for 4 whole days, and then by reason of Mr. Sergeant's sickness and infirmity, pursued by Master Nicholas 5 entire days more, June 17, 20, 27, and July 20. So that was a long trial. The fourth and last part of the evidence and proof of the 14 original, 1 and 10 additional articles was given in by Master Nichols at the 29th of July, 1644, concluded the same day. So it was the very evidence itself, which was excellently well pressed by these learned gentlemen, took up 17 whole days, morning and evening, besides 12 days attendance more, whereupon other pressing public affairs and forced the Lords to adjourn the trial when the Committee of Commons were ready with their witnesses, and the Archbishop present with his council, ready to receive the charge. After all the evidence, answers, and replies thereto fully given, the Archbishop had liberty granted to make a recapitulation of his whole defense before the Lords, which accordingly performed on the 2nd of September, 1644, to which Samuel Brown, Esquire, a member of the House of Commons, replied on 11th of September, summing up the principal parts of the evidence given against him in Lords. On 11th of October, the Archbishop's counsel were heard at the Lords' bar on this point of law, to which they were formally directed to speak, whether in all or any of the articles charged against him there were any treason contained. When Mr. John Hurt only argued as the mouth of the rest of his council, soon after the Commons having drawn an ordinance of attainder of high treason against the Archbishop, was brought to the Commons bar, where Mr. Sam Brown in his presence summed up the evidence given against him before the Lords, to which the Archbishop, by order, gave his answer viva voce at the Commons bar, after which the same day the ordinance for his attainder of high treason passed the Commons House without any dissenting voice but one, and that not upon the matter of his charge high treason, of which all voted him guilty, but manner of proceeding only, this ordinance being transmitted to the House of Peers, because some of the Lords were not present at all the evidence given against him during his long trial. Thereupon, December 4, 1644, they ordered that all books, writings, dockets, and evidences concerning the Archbishop of Canterbury, his trial before the Lords' Parliament, should be brought in to the clerk of the Parliament by 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday next, which being done accordingly, the Lords among themselves seriously re-examined all the heads and principal parts of the evidence formally urged against at him at the bar, debating, weighing, and then voting each particular as they went. After this most serious review, their lordships, upon mature deliberation, voted him guilty of all the articles and matters of fact charged against him, and also that of high treason, notwithstanding the argument of the Archbishop's council, upon a conference with the House of Commons, which satisfied them in the point of law. Whereupon they passed the ordinance for his attainder of high treason, by virtue of which whereof he was soon after executed, where more fully in due place. Thus you have the sum of the Lord's more deliberate, fair, moderate, just, though tedious proceedings against this arch traitor, not to be precedented in any preceding age, nor fit to be imitated for the future in regard of length and expense and time, against which calumny and malice itself can take no just exceptions on his behalf, or rather because himself would have tried, condemned, executed above 100 Puritans in half the time where he would have tried, without the least mercy or moderation, had they been brought before his tribunal for far more petty treasons than those of which he was attainted and voted guilty upon the most full and pregnant evidence. Having given the world this brief account of the fairness and deliberateness of his trial so long delayed, partly by his own neglect in not pleading to his articles of impeachment, not once petitioning to be brought to trial during all the time of his restraint, partly by his own aforementioned petitions to Lords for a longer time, when the Commons pressed to expedite his hearing, partly by the death of Mr. John Pym and some other members of the Commons House who were trusted to prepare and manage the evidence against him, part whereof miscarried by their decease, but principally by reason of the great intervening urgent affairs, distractions, and bloody wars in the kingdoms of Ireland and England, occasioned by his Majesty's deserting of Parliament and the arch-prelate's plots to set up popery, not through any neglect or default in the Lord or House of Commons. We shall next endeavor to yield you a full, satisfactory, true account of the proceedings and evidence given in against him at his trial, which you will render him the archest traitor, the most pestilent malefactor in all kinds of villainy, tyranny, oppression, mischief that was ever arraigned, condemned in any parliament. Pierce Graveston's, Archbishop Arundel's, Cardinal Wolsey, Empson's, Dudley's, and Earl of Strafford treasons, conspiracies, oppressions, and grand misdemeanors laid together. On Thursday, 12 March 1643, the day designed for the commencement of this great trial, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the Archbishop was brought prisoner by the Lieutenant of the Tower of London and Usher of the Black Rod to the bar in the Lord's house, where after he had kneeled down on his knees for a little space, the Lord Grey of Wark, then Speaker of that honorable house, commanded him to rise up, which done, a committee of the House of Commons appointed to manage the evidence at his trial might be read. Whereupon one of the clerks of the Lord's house read both the original and additional articles aforementioned, and after that his answer, plea, and demurrer to them. All which being read, the Archbishop then desired the Lords that the House of Commons might give in all their charge and evidence to the article against him before he should put his answer to any particular charge, because he was ancient, his memory was very short, and the articles general, that he might answer all his charge together, not each day's evidence by piecemeal. To which Master Maynard, in behalf of the Commons, answered, number one, that if the Archbishop's memory were so bad as he pretended, it would be far worse for him to answer it without answering many particulars, the whole evidence against him together, and to answer every particular charge each day. It would be a great inconvenience to have witnesses cross-examined upon other days than those whereof they gave in their testimony against the prisoner. That the Lords themselves would find it difficult to pass their judgment upon all the charge together without hearing the punctual answer to every particular proof that should be given in evidence while it was fresh in their memories. Because all the witnesses, which were very many, must of necessity attend and be kept in town from the first to the last of his trial, which would be a very great charge and inconvenience. In the Earl of Strafford's case, the very Parliament was put to answer every day to the particular evidence given against him on the same day, upon which reasons the House of Peers ordered that the Archbishop should make his particular answer to every charge on the same day it was given against him. Then the Archbishop desired that the House of Commons would sever the articles which were treason from those other articles which were matters of crime and misdemeanoroni, but not treason, so that he might know which of them were treason and which not. To which Master Maynard answered that this they might not do, because they were now only to try the matters of fact, not law, and because all the articles taken together, not each or any particular article by itself, made up of treason, whereof he was charged, to wit, his endeavors to subvert and destroy religion, the fundamental laws of the land, and the government of the realm. After which Major Sergeant Wilde, by way of introduction to the Archbishop's charges, with abundance of elegancy and zeal, related the heads of his offences to the House of Peers in the ensuing strains. My lords, the great cause of the Archbishop of Canterbury, after long and painful trials, is now come to birth, of which it may be truly said, such as the like case, repertum es odierno die facinus, quod nec poteta fingere, nec historia sonare, nec mimos imitare potutoret. With all the oppressions, all the pernicious practices and machinations which have been in each time to ruinate our religion, laws, and liberty were lost, I think here they may be found and drawn out again to the life, so that your lordships who have been the great assertors of our liberties, and stood so fast to the rules and principles of your noble progenitors, which others have ignobly deserted, may, after a long conflict with so many great and marchioness difficulties, say now, as a great commander once did upon an extraordinary danger, tandem par animo meo periculum video. Here's cause proportional to yourselves in a proper act of justice. Had they been the faults of common frailty, error, or cogitancy in which this man hath committed, we should gladly have stepped back and cast a cloak over them, being ever so willful, so universal, so destructive to the laws of God and man, so comprehensive of all the evils and miseries which now we suffer. The sin would lie upon our own heads if we should not call for justice, which that it hath been so uncalled for, not deferred. Well, that may be a good time to stop. Maybe let's go down to finish the bottom of the page. Finally, we're getting to trial. But the truth survives, and matter enough survives, so copious and so full of variety that all the particulars should be examined. For his 3 years imprisonment, which he complains of, there would be 3 years of trial and hearing of the heavy charges that lies against him. The charge of high treason, treason in all and every part. Treason is the highest pitch and altitude, for which greater treason there can be than to betray the whole realm, and to subvert the very foundations, leaving nothing for posterity, but a curse upon him that shall go about to build again. That which is of itself so heinous is much more enhanced and aggravated by the quality of the person. A churchman, a great prelate, a man in great trust, place, and authority in the church and commonwealth, a man endued with such great gifts of nature, and so many of grace and favor from his majesty, and for all these to be perverted to a contrary end, even the destruction of the public, and the ruin of the womb that bare him. How deep a dye do these impose upon his foul crime. How churchmen in all ages hath been observed should come. Okay, we will call it a day there. Let us close with prayer. Blessing and honor and glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb forever. Amen. Until next time, Godspeed.